one of the great puzzles. What we know of her from the text is the great tragedy of her abduction, of her rape, of her return. But there's more to her story. She bore a child. The child was a mystery. Who is she? At that time, the Torah had not yet given us definitions that were clear about who's Jewish and who's not. Does the father define the child's lineage? Does the mother? Okay, what about a child who's born in a situation such as this, a rape? Yaakov put an amulet around the child's neck, making it clear to everyone, this is a child who's holy, this is a child who's worthy of a divine name being put. The question, in a certain sense, was resolved through that. The next thing that happened is something that we don't really know that much about. The child, whose name was Osnat, wandered off. How she wandered off, who was in charge, we don't know. She wasn't found. Another great tragedy in Yaakov's house. We do find her much later, and we find her later with the name Osnat, which may or may not be the name that she was called in her native home. Who was she? She was found in Egypt. Did she get there by being traded? Did she get there directly? We don't know. There are even possibilities of supernatural intervention. Did an angel bring her there? She became Yosef's wife. In a certain sense, that closed the circle. Shechem, the place where Dinah was abducted and raped, was also the place from which Yosef was sold, the place of great tragedy. In the same way that if you would have interviewed Yosef the day he was sold and asked him a very simple question, think lowbrow, simple question, is this good or is this bad? What would he have said? What could be worse than being sold into slavery and betrayed by your own family? What could be worse than that? If you were to ask Yosef that years later, when he was responsible for Egypt, which was the largest, most prosperous country in the entire area, sustaining his family and literally the world by his foresight, and you say, he might say, you know, as he did, it was God's will that I get here. I had to be there in order to get here. In the same way, Osnat, who ended up bought by the very same person who bought Yosef, Potiphera, who regarded her as his daughter. He was unable to have children. She was as though his own daughter, an adopted daughter. She ended up marrying Yosef. Now, what do we know about the imprint of that? I'll tell you what we know. When you bless boys Friday night, what do you say to them? You say, may God make you like Menashe and Ephraim, Yosef's two sons. Why them? Because they grew up in Pharaoh's palace and ended up on a level equal to that of all of the tribes who grew up in Israel, having seen Yaakov with everything going for them. They were able to grow up in a completely hostile, foreign environment with just as much learning, just as great refinement of character. Where did that come from? From Yosef, who was a head of state? No, it came from Osnat. Osnat had the power that her mother had to be in a place that was completely foreign and to define it ultimately in one's own terms. Osnat had to confront evil every moment, from the time of her own coming to Egypt and from every day she spent in Egypt. But she was able to convey to her children belief in birur, belief in uplifting and finding the good from the midst of bad. There's a machloket in Gemara between Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai about birur, which means selection. On Shabbos, the question is asked, how does one select? What's the permitted way to select one thing from another? So the Academy of Hillel maintains that if you have many things that are mixed, let's say good fruit and bad fruit, you have to choose the good fruit out of the bad fruit. Otherwise, it's too close to sifting, which is one of the forbidden acts, one of the acts that were used in making bread for the showbreads in the Mishkan. Bet Shammai says no. The permitted selecting is taking the bad from the good, which is not the halacha as we practice it. But we will in the future. We're told that until Mashiach comes, we'll do things on Hillel's terms. After Mashiach comes, we'll do things on Shammai's terms. Meaning, in the world as it is today, we have to select the good from the bad. When you look at yourself, or look at others, or look at the world, don't be overwhelmed by its evil. Find what's good that's there, and go with it. When Mashiach comes, he'll do battle with the evil, and the good will emerge completely, in its fullest beauty. But for us, we have to be like Dinah and her daughter Osnat, and find good in the midst of evil.